And welcome to World of Tech, where I try to give info about a topic that I think will be useful to any average consumer, not just the tech enthusiast among us. Today, I'll be talking about the difference between laptops and desktops, which one you should buy based on your budget, your need for upgradability, and how much power you actually need in a device. Before I go into more details about the specific aspects that a laptop or desktop is better at, I want to go over overall whether you need a laptop or a desktop. I think it is best to get a laptop for people who care a lot about portability, have some extra money, and who do not care a lot about power. For people who do not care about portability that much and need the power and upgradability that a desktop provides, it is best to get a desktop and you can just get a cheap laptop for things on the go. Before we get into specific differences in a laptop versus a desktop, there are some things you might not know about laptops. Laptops perform differently, whether they are connected to power or not. You might think that the specs you get in a computer will be maxed out all the time, but that is not the case. There's a severe performance decrease when you unplug. So whether you're playing the latest games or using professional software, you will notice the difference whether you're plugged in or not, because this is not a small difference. This is because when it's plugged in the wall, you can put all the power towards the components at max power. But on battery, your laptop would die instantaneously if that would happen. So now that we know laptops can perform differently, I want to discuss the differences in power between laptops and desktops. Some people might assume that having the same specs on a laptop and a desktop means that they'll perform the same, but that is not the case. You might have heard that Intel makes CPUs, which are the brain of the computer, and one of their most top-line products is the Core i7. And this will perform very differently in a laptop than a desktop because the manufacturers make CPUs specifically for laptops and desktops, making them perform very differently even though they have the same name. There is also a big difference between laptops and desktops in the upgradability area. Upgradability is defined as a product or device that can be upgraded easily. It is much harder to upgrade a laptop than it is a desktop. For laptops, they use proprietary parts, which mean that parts only work with a specific device, which makes it a lot harder to upgrade it. This leaves you up to the mercy of the manufacturer, whether they thought about the consumer and allowed to be upgraded, and usually this is not the case. Also, it is very hard to see if a laptop can be upgraded without opening it up, and that takes a lot of work just to see if it works. As for a desktop, most can be easily upgraded, and that being a definite if you build it yourself or have someone you know build it. The only issue you may run into is if you buy from a big brand like Dell or HP. They produce so many desktops that some of these parts may be proprietary, but a lot of the parts can still be easily upgraded. Another thing to consider between a laptop and a desktop is price. On average, a laptop is more expensive than a desktop for the same specs, which makes sense because it has a screen and a keyboard. But to keep in mind that most people have a keyboard, mouse, and monitor lying around their home, so having that extra screen is not always the best thing. So, laptops are much more expensive because they take a lot more effort and money to design and put together, making the final product more expensive. Before we go into some shopping tips, I want to discuss some laptop-specific features and which ones work best for you. First, I want to talk about a touchscreen. A touchscreen is a way of interfacing with your device through touch without using a keyboard. This can be useful whether you're just drawing or making it easier to scroll when reading an article. This is a great benefit, but can also be a bad thing because the screen can crack more easily, in my experience, because of the materials that it's made with. But if you're careful with your device, that should not be a problem. Also, touchscreens are a lot more expensive, and sometimes you have to sacrifice resolution, which I would strongly argue against. Also, having a touchscreen does not necessarily mean it's a 2-in-1, which means it can flip around in a 360-degree angle, which I find very useful. Another thing to consider when buying a laptop is screen size, with the main ones being 17 through 11 inches. If you need portability, the rule of thumb is under 14 inches, and 15 is good if you want size and portability, and anything above that is personal preference, but you can use anything depending on which one works best for you in your workflow. Finally, I want to talk about how to shop for a laptop or desktop. First, no matter what you're comparing, you can compare two CPUs by going to Specifications tab on the product page and then CPU, and then plugging the two names into an online comparison tool to see the differences. And you can do that with a lot of other devices you'll find in your computer. Also, if you're getting a laptop, make sure to check that the resolution of the device's screen and make sure it is at least 1080p or higher, because anything else and it will not look high quality. And if you want more information on resolution, please check the iCards. Also, please compare the parts lists for multiple computers with one another, because if you do not want to go to a fancy brand if you're on a budget, because it does not make much of a difference in the end. So, I hope this helped you make up your mind if you're going to get a laptop or a desktop. I really hope this video helped, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Also, please let me know what your reasoning is on if you should get a laptop or a desktop. So, that's it for World of Tech. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.